Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we begin today, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back to the Crypto Republic, your go-to channel for the latest tiny updates in digital assets. Before we get started with today's business, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic, bringing you updates every day at noon and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. And as always, thank you to everyone who takes the time to subscribe, like, and share these videos. Your engagement helps get this information in front of more people. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high value insights to the crypto community. And I love answering all your comments. And I know that everyone loves learning together. All right, let's break this down. Well, today we're going to be putting together all the biggest and greatest XRP and Ripple news from this week into one video. I know not everyone has the time to catch up every single day, so consider this your one weekly financial combat briefing in the XRP universe. So let's break this down. First up, some major enterprise news. IDC just named G-Treasury a leader in the 2025-2026 market cap for AI-driven enterprise, treasury, and risk management solutions. This is huge because G-Treasury's platform is solving some of the most complex problems in global finance today. Real-time liquidity visibility, autonomous cash optimization, fraud prevention, deep risk management, and ISO 222 readiness. Essentially, it's a one-stop hub for global treasury operations. I want you to think of G-Treasury like central nervous system of a multinational company, coordinating risk, cash flow, and liquidity access across hundreds of moving parts. Ripple acquiring it's like installing a supercharged autopilot into global finance. This mirrors how JP Morgan acquired Quorum in 2016 to integrate blockchain into enterprise finance. Ripple is doing something similar, but with RLUSD and XRP as the core engine. Here's a quick real-world example. Imagine a multi-billion-dollar corporation needing to move funds between countries on a Friday. Traditionally, they'd have to send payments midweek to ensure they're clear. With G-Treasury and Ripple's RLUSD integration, these transactions can happen instantly, any day of the week. That's operational efficiency in action. Now, you may ask, ladies and gentlemen, why does this matter for XRP? Ripple acquired G-Treasury for about $1 billion, giving them instant access to major banks and Fortune 500 companies instead of selling software one treasury at a time. Ripple now has pre-integrated distribution to some of the largest global finance clients. This positions Ripple as more than a payment provider now, ladies and gentlemen. It's now stepping into enterprise liquidity, risk management, and financial infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a true game changer. Here's a quick recap. G-Treasury equals leader in AI plus treasury management. Ripple acquisition equals massive strategic move. XRP adoption, potentially massive. I want to talk about XRP ETF milestones now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk numbers. XRP just hit 800 million in spot XRP ETFs, a major milestone towards the 1 billion mark. That's a massive vote of confidence in XRP for institutional investors. Hitting 800 million in spot XRP ETFs is like a small startup suddenly being stocked in every Walmart nationwide. Instant visibility and legitimacy. We also heard from Stephen McClure, CEO of Canary Capital, who launched the first spot XRP ETF. He highlighted that Ripple and XRP are moving beyond just crypto payments into real-world asset tokenization. Here's what he said. The XRP ledger is moving stablecoins like RLUSD and other tokenized real-world assets. And I believe XRP will be the leading token for real-world asset tokenization. Similar to how Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust in 2013 legitimized Bitcoin among institutional investors, XRP ETFs are giving this token real-world credibility and adoption potential. Interesting, right? Here's the takeaway for you. XRP isn't just sitting on exchanges, ladies and gentlemen. It's actively becoming a core financial infrastructure asset, not just another crypto. I want to talk about interactive brokers and RLUSD expansion. Now, some exciting trading news. Interactive Brokers, the major retail institutional brokerage, has enabled 24/7 funding with USDC. And next week, they're rolling out Ripple and PayPal stablecoins. This means clients can transfer funds and start trading within minutes, with low fees, all powered by zero hash. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you made it to this point, I do appreciate you. There's so much happening, and the biggest thing I want to talk about right now is the yen. The yen strength of the global markets right now. And why I say the global bull markets hinge on one signal, the Japanese yen. A rise in the yen, that means strengthening against the dollar, which visibly would appear as a downward move on charts due to the USD-JPY pair, combined with rising bond volatility, would signal a risk-off reversal. So just as I remember when I was starting on the street about the carry trade, it seems to be that much more intact through, I would say, a synthetic play. So what this means in little English, what I just said, if the yen strengthens, this bull market will come off the tracks. It's always the risk-on risk appetite that really, settles everything as far as I'm concerned. Now we have the new bull market. This is fiscal driven, not monetary. Why this is fiscal driven, not monetary is it's a new world order as far as I'm concerned. And this bull is being driven by fiscal excess. Okay, that's government spending, infrastructure, stimulus with, I want to say, more local than sovereign. Okay, so as we see governments begin to spend more money, that's positive overall for the economy. As far as we're concerned, what we're telling people that retain us in any capacity. Now, also, U.S. exceptionalism is in transition. This is a big thing, ladies and gentlemen. U.S. exceptionalism used to mean a stronger dollar, stronger stocks, stronger bonds. But that's breaking down now because now you want a weaker dollar. And it's kind of like sell America, what we believe that's going to, the print it to win it phase that's going to start. And that's basically a big deal, We're talking about NAFTA, in a way that we're remembering what happened. Anyone who's been around when NAFTA was coming out when the Clintons were there can really see a lot of things happening right now. But what you're seeing right now, geopolitics are not destabilizing, okay? So what's really driving gold right now is currency debasement and fiscal expansion, not risk. So when you look back towards the end of this decade, a lot of people are probably going to say that they wish they would have picked up a lot more assets being gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies as the world changes. How this relates back into what we were just talking about, the news about XRP, is that XRP is vital to where the global marketplace is going. A lot of people just either don't want to accept it, they're in denial, or there's a lot more things going on behind the scenes. I loved yesterday's comments about who people think the villain are. I think the villain is greed in this drama, and the greed that who's going to lose their seat at the table, who's going to gain a seat at the table, and how much of the pie is going to be reallocated away from certain people, and that banks may actually have to do some work for a change instead of just doing what they normally do every day. But as the time of recording this, XRP is approaching $2. It's trying to, hold on to these levels. Again, why I say you have to have the Gucci clarity of what we're talking about here right now. There's so many things happening that you just have to have this. We're seeing this, okay? And it's international market dynamics. And this is what's a big thing, Gold is going to be one of the best performing assets of this decade. And we also believe that XRP by far will be one of the, if not the best performing asset of this decade for many, many reasons, okay? But you have to do this for yourself. And when we talk about gold, we're talking about the physical custody of it. We're not talking about paper trading of it anymore. The paper trading aspect on COMEX, that regime is dying. We're talking about fiscal custody of it. The same way that I'm always preaching about custodying your own XRP and cold storage wallets. You have to do that. Take custody, not your keys, not your crypto, okay? Because when all this is over and the new world is changing, there's going to be a lot of dynamics, okay? And we have the midterms coming, and people are beginning to position for that. But make no mistake about it, the whole world is changing right now. So it's how you prepare for yourself, okay? I don't want to totally have like a whole macro conversation here from this because, if you want that, you can come to our Patreon. And thank you for everyone who signed up and also all the new members and the membership channels. But I'm trying to break it down what we say to clients that retain us in a capacity about where the world is going and why and everything like that. It's an institutional market right now, and how institutions think. They think about physical custody. They want to hold on to everything. That's the main thing that they're looking at, right? So please, it'd be in your own best interest, in our opinion, it's not advice, okay, to physically hold your XRP if you can do that, right? Trading sizes, right? There's going to be a lot of different sizes. We always talk about this. Jesse Livermore, position sizes, right? There'll be a lot of ways to take advantage of market swings if your position size is correct. So make sure that you have the right position size for yourself. It's got to be small enough to get cut up, carried, add to, stopped out, so it doesn't crush you, and that you can be in the market long enough to make you a fortune. I keep telling you this, right? But again, this is the era of fiscal custody, right? We were talking about a silver squeeze with, dynamics because of what banks are doing. Again, banks play for keeps. I've been trading with banks my entire financial career, knowing all of them and who sits behind the desks on the other end of the platforms and the other end of the trades. Nobody wins against them. They win no matter what, because remember, they're too big to fail. Once something's too big to fail, that means they're an appendage of something, right? And I want to hear in the comment section, please, I want to hear, do you think that we're going to hear that people are too big to fail again and they're going to have to get bought out or bailed out or whatever they call it, this dynamics? But make no mistake, and what we've been telling people that retain us in any capacity, with midterms coming, we believe whatever will be done to cap prices to make the themes of this upcoming election stick so they can make their monetary policies work for good, okay? So again, how this relates to XRP, XRP is the blood that's going to go through the new system as far as we're concerned, okay? Again, why we call it crude oil, because crude oil is the financial blood of the entire world. Without it, you got nothing. The machine doesn't stay lubricated, doesn't stay oiled. How you don't get cut up with sushi right here, right now, is use low leverage. Wait for points to go in on charts, okay? Remember, I'm not a chartist. I have surgeons that work. Some of you guys saw one of our chartists on some of our videos. Again, he might as well be a neurosurgeon, okay? You wait for the proper entry points with the proper leverage amount, you can ride through this. It's like surfing, okay? You want to catch that wave. When it breaks, do it again. You don't want the wave to break you. So be patient, stay frosty, get the Gucci clarity. And why I say Gucci clarity, the world's moving away from things again. So what used to be one definition, what we just went over this, exceptionalism, now means something else, right? Weaker dollar. So you just have to see where we're going and why. And if you want to, we're going to be having videos that are going to be, a daily update every day at 7 p.m., a weekly update on this, because we want to make sure that everyone gets the news besides our rants and what we're talking about, right? Because if you get the news, you can plot where we're going and why. And I touched on the Rand Corporation last time. They do all the war gamings for the government. So if you're mentioned in there, you're big time. And I don't know how much more people need to hear unless you're an outright XRP hater. You can hate certain things, but if it creates alpha for your portfolio, don't you like that? But they're mentioned now in all the proper, rings that we discuss to clients, okay? Once you're in all three of the rings that we discuss to clients, you're good to go. You're squared away. You will become Gucci. In time, you will become Gucci. You just have to wait for it, okay? But again, right, the clarity bill, there is no clarity on that right now. The only clarity we have is there is zero clarity, right? So, this is why we are the remorse, ladies and gentlemen. And I repeat myself to drill this into your head. 1 + 1 is 2, because most people come and they are upset that something hasn't happened overnight. Nothing happens overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every night. So remember why you're in this. Remember, because institutions play the long game. They don't care about noise, right? They don't. I know some small people, and why I say small people, if you're brand new in finance, I consider that small, because you haven't been battle tested to have your stomach turn to steel and your mind turn to steel, right? So until you go from small to mid to large, you're going to be very sensitive to market movements, right? It could freak you out. This is why you have to have conviction. You have to have Gucci clarity conviction. I'm going to throw that in there, right? So you know what you're doing and why. That's why I stress writing down your plan. You write down your plan, you know what you're doing. What are your quarterly goals? What are your monthly goals? What are your yearly goals? Write these down to see where you're going, how you're hitting them, and what you're doing to get there, right? That's the most important thing right now, because make no mistake about it, this year, like I said in the last video, fortunes will be made and fortunes will be lost. Blood will be spilled from this, right? And who I believe the villains are? I believe the villains are people's own lack of patience. The true villain is your mind in finance. The true villain, at least to me, that I convey to people that retain a signing capacity, is your impatience to wait for things to develop. That is the true villain as far as I'm concerned. Now, everybody's going to be fighting for a piece of this pie at the table right now. We're going to see everybody come out of the woodworks, right? But as long as we stay underneath the sharks as the remora, we'll get to the other side, ladies and gentlemen. Ripple is also partnering with LMAX, a major UK-based institutional FX and crypto execution platform. Through this partnership, RLUSD becomes core collateral for institutional trading. That's massive. Ripple is committing $150 million to finance LMAX expansion. XRP and RLUSD are now integrated into multi-trillion-dollar FX markets, including LMAX in London. Integrating RLUSD into LMAX is like plugging a turbocharger into an already powerful engine. Suddenly, every trade and settlement moves faster and more efficiently. This mirrors Visa's 1980s shift from paper checks to electronic transactions, reducing friction, enabling 24/7 commerce, and revolutionizing the market. LMAX trading platform handled $8.2 trillion in volume last year. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. Ripple putting RLUSD at the center of this network is like turning a small coin into the engine of an entire institutional trading ecosystem. This signals a shift in Ripple's strategy from payment software to primary liquidity and collateral provider across digital assets. So think about this. Interactive brokers plus LMAX equals RLUSD institutional adoption plus XRP ledger growth. That's a massive milestone. Let's talk about EU and UK licensing. In Europe, Ripple made big moves, ladies and gentlemen. They received their preliminary electronic money institution, EMI, license from Luxembourg's CSSF. Casey Crock, VP and Managing Director of the UK and Europe, said European customers can now access real-time settlements, on and off ramps, and last-mile payouts, all managed end-to-end with Ripple's digital asset technology. This comes right after Ripple received its EMI license in the UK, giving them regulated coverage across both the EU and Britain. Getting an EMI license across the EU and UK is like a railroad company gaining rights to operate across multiple countries in the 1800s, opening trade routes and expanding his influence. This is similar to how PayPal received regulatory approvals in the early 2000s. Ripple now has the legal backing to expand cross-border payments across Europe. That's massive, ladies and gentlemen. The significance? While this doesn't make XRP legal tender, it materially de-risks banks and fintechs using XRP liquidity and Ripple's infrastructure, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine a European business sending cross-border payments in seconds, 24/7 instead of waiting days. That's what Ripple's license unlocks. Let's talk about conference and expert insights. Ladies and gentlemen, this week also saw key Ripple voices on stage at major conferences. Brad Garlinghouse emphasized clarity in crypto regulation, urging collaboration in Washington. Other highlights, Richard Tang from Binance, Mingwei from Algorand Foundation, Amber Subban from Kyoko. These conferences are like G8 meetings for crypto, where leaders decide how much markets evolve and which technologies gain mainstream adoption. Ladies and gentlemen, this is much like Silicon Valley tech conferences in the 1900s, shaped the internet boom. Ripple's presence signals future industry trends. So I want you to pay attention right here, because this is the kind of industry momentum that makes XRP adoption accelerate fast, even though it's really boring and sometimes might be like watching paint dry, ladies and gentlemen, but it's very, very important, right? It's like doing a geological survey in the middle of the jungle where it's just jungle, but we're looking for the PPMs in the greatest spots when we're drilling holes. I want to talk about South Korea legislation. Over in South Korea, new legislation is being passed to establish a tokenized securities framework. Why does this matter, you might ask? On some exchanges, XRP is more traded than Bitcoin and Ethereum, meaning this legal framework will directly impact Ripple and the XRP ledger, giving them more ability to partner with banks on tokenization and real-world assets. This legislation is like opening the floodgates for trade. Once a legal framework is in place, XRP can flow into new financial channels. This is similar to how Japan officially recognized Bitcoin in 2017. It led to massive adoption and liquidity. South Korea's XRP-friendly framework is huge. So XRP plus regulatory clarity equals even stronger adoption potential in Asia, which is huge, okay? I want to talk about RLUSD on XRP ledger institutional adoption for a second. Reese Merrick, Ripple's managing director for the Middle East and Africa, shared 35% of RLUSD volume is on the XRP ledger, with Ethereum still leading at 70%. XRPL offers ultra-fast settlement, 2 to 3 seconds, and super low transaction fees. Ripple acquiring companies like Hidden Road and Palisade Custody to expand stablecoin and custody services. Using XRPL for stablecoin settlements is like replacing slow freight trains with a high-speed bullet train. Payments arrive instantly, no matter the distance. Ladies and gentlemen, this mirrors the transition from telegraphs to the internet and financial messaging. The speed and reliability completely changed the industry. Imagine a company funding weekend operations without worrying about banking cutoffs. That's the real-world impact of XRPL adoption. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up all the major XRP and Ripple news for this week. From G Treasury's enterprise dominance, TTF milestones, RLUSD expansion, European license, and South Korean legislation. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate you. You know what's amazing? How impatient people are for where the world is going. Everybody remembers the story about the gentleman selling his Bitcoins for pizza and what he must feel like every day. One of the greatest analogies that were ever taught to me on the floor of the New York Mercantile Exchange from a trader that was one of my biggest mentors was, when you invest, it's like planting a crop. It takes time, patience, perseverance, daily management, and a Gucci clarity positive outlook that you're going to grow something out of nothing. Because you're going to wake up a lot of days and you're going to see nothing at all. You'll see no movement because all of it's happening underground. It's happening in the dark. This is when your mind, why I tell you, fear makes the wolf bigger, is going to keep playing tricks on you. The greatest villain is your mind when it comes to investments and finance. You have to have that clarity and you have to stay frosty to stay there while you have the conviction of what you're doing, or you're going to think about a million reasons of why this will not work out. Remember why you started and remember who you want to benefit from your adventure into finance. And why I say it's an adventure is because every day something changes. So having the patience, the plan, the map in your mind about where you're going and why is so vital, because when you're trading with leverage or you're trading with your time, this is all you have. You have a lot of time to sit there and talk to yourself while you're doing the wrong thing, the right thing. That's why position size is so important, because if the position size is small enough, you don't really care what happens each day because you know where you're going. If you got value from this breakdown, hit like, share it out, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high value insights to the crypto community. Stay curious, stay informed. I'll see you in the next video. I want you to have a great day. Always stay emotionless and watch XRP. This could be a defining moment. This content is for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial before making decisions. Remember, the game is changing. Those who understand it first will benefit the most. Make sure you're on the right side of it. You have two choices. You can be like the crowd, reacting after the move, rationalizing why they missed it, telling themselves to never let it happen again. Or you could be the one who saw behind the curtain, the one who understood the infrastructure shift, the one who positioned early, not randomly, but intentionally. Because some moments in history are loud, but the ones that change everything are quiet, right up until the moment they're not. And this is one of those moments. Do not blink, because the world is distracting you with noise, while XRP continues developing behind the scenes and building momentum in the broader digital asset landscape. Stay sharp, stay informed, accumulate knowledge. Your move now will be remembered. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning. This opened your eyes, smash that like button, ring the bell, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Turn on notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to Crypto Republic. We break down the major global banking trends shaping digital assets today, giving you context, clarity, and research you can use. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, stay in the Republic.